about 20 seconds left.
Time's 6 o'clock. Meeting starts.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Stay Alive Literature and Step Group meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Kara, and I'm an alcoholic.
Thank you, Kara.
Hello, everybody. This is a 1-hour open meeting with no break. Please silence and put away your cell phones. Our business meeting is held on the last Monday of the month after the meeting, and all are welcome. We ask that you refrain from the use of profanity as we are in a church and on a spiritual journey. We hope that you can carry this principle in your everyday life. The church only allows us to consume clear drinks while using this room. If you brought anything different or have food, then we ask you to hold off until you leave the building. I've asked Mike to read the preamble and open statement.
Mike Alcoholic.
Hey, Mike.
Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety.
Thank you, Mike. Is this anyone's first time at an AA meeting? Are there any visitors from out of town or anyone at this meeting for the first time?
Mike Alcoholic, first time here.
Hi, Mike. Welcome. Isaac, welcome, Isaac. Hey, Sam, welcome. Would anyone, does anyone need a phone list? Jason will pass it
So we're going
around.
to put together a phone list for you gentlemen, but we're going to also give you a blank piece of paper. We ask if you're able to use your phone, put your phone number down. That way we can contact you as well. Okay?
You guys have to.
It's okay when you get one or if you need one. If you have a number, put it down. If not, it's no worries.
Thank you, Jason. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Is there anyone celebrating an AA anniversary this month? Dougie!
My name's Doug, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Doug.
Yesterday, by the grace of God and the help of everybody in the AA community, I got 16 years. It's all good stuff.
I've asked Perry to read how it works. Hey, Perry.
Rarely have we seen a person fail, but it's certainly followed our practice. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program, between men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunate. They are not, they seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from the grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then we're ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was no until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures avail us nothing. We stood at a turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandonment. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as program recovery. 1. We admitted we are powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become managed. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives to the care of God who we understood. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Committed to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory when we were wrong promptly and meaningfully. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to prove our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice His principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaim, point in order, I cannot go through with this. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We can spiritual progress rather than spiritual progression. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapters to agnostics, and our own personal adventures before and after make 3 clear pertinent ideas. A, that we are alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could relieve our alcoholism. And C, that
God could if He were soft. Thank you, Perry.
Thanks, Barry.
Our 7th tradition states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. We will now pass the basket.
Go here.
This is a weekly literature or step meeting. Our format is as follows. A speaker is asked to talk for no longer than 30 minutes. He or she uses their time on qualifying themselves and speaking on a composition from the Big Book or the step of the week, followed by a group shares, discussions, or questions until 7 p.m. We end the meeting with the Lord's Prayer or the Serenity Prayer. It is your choice. You can find our past weekly meetings on our YouTube page called the Stay Alive Literature and Step Group Meeting. This brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting on this day of August, what is today, the 16th? 17th, 2026 in Doylestown, Pennsylvania at the Monday night 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group meeting at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Sara, and she's going to be speaking on Step 9. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Sara, an alcoholic.
Hi, Sara.
My belly is nervous and my hands are shaking, and they say that that's God shaking the fear out of us, right? I have a sober date. It's December 28th, 2017, a little over 8.5 years, and I have a sponsor. Her name is Meredith, and I have a home group, and it's a Clear Cut Directions group in Ivy Land, Pennsylvania on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. So if you're ever in the area, it's a really great big book study. And I've been through the 12 steps in this big book that we have over here, and I sponsor women in this fellowship, which means that I get the opportunity to take them through the steps and give them a design for living that really goes somewhere. You know, tell you a little bit about how I got here, what it was like, and what brought me here, and then my experience on the 9th step. You know, I fully believe that I was born this way. I came equipped as an alcoholic right from birth. I'm the oldest of 4. I grew up in Lower Bucks County, Catholic school, 12 years, and I'm the oldest of 4. I grew up in alcoholism. My father was an active alcoholic. He died at 60 years old from late-stage alcoholism. And so I tell you that, and I say that my 3 younger brothers and sisters, they have beautiful families. They have amazing careers. They are members of their community. They are well-adjusted inside. They are peaceful and loving just by nature. And then there was me. And so I was like, what I'm telling you is that I could have had the best mom and dad in the whole world, and I could have had an alcoholic mom and a dad, and that's what it was. I just was born this way, didn't have anything to do with it, and my siblings do not have this disease of alcoholism, and I do. You know, I was just always weird inside. Self-centered fear consumed me from the time I can remember thinking. I was in 2nd grade, walking up at 8 years old to the chalkboard, sucking my stomach in because I was so scared. I was fat, and everyone was looking at my belly. Do you remember anybody walking next to you in 2nd grade? You don't. But I was so consumed with myself. I was an anxious kid. I bit my fingers a lot. I had nervous tics. And I was just a ball full of... I absorbed my father's alcoholism. That's the truth. You know, Clancy I always says, we're sensitive. We're sensitive. I was sensitive. I could tell my father. I hated his alcoholism. I hated what alcohol did to him. And I just absorbed it. And I was a nervous kid with all that going on inside, and it just progressed. And when I was 15 years old, I was at keg party in the Mary Divine Woods in Croydon, Pennsylvania, and I drank a Mickey's 40, and I blacked out. I woke up and I pushed some guy trying to take advantage of me, and I went home and I threw up all night. I was so sick, and I swore I was never doing that again. Like, my father was an alcoholic. I hated it. I was never doing that again. I didn't pick up a drink again until I was 29 years old. And but I will tell you that I found other things really, really quickly. And it was easier as a 15-year-old girl to find other things than it was to walk into a bar. And I'm gonna talk about the first time that I found something that saved my life. And why I say it saved my life is because it got me out of myself in a way that I needed to get out of myself. I was cutting my wrist. I was promiscuous. I had all these crazy abnormal behaviors going on. And I remember the first time I put, and this is Alcoholics Anonymous, and so I'm going to keep everything as a drink, but I preference that to say that. And the first time I put a drink into me, and I felt like the gates of heaven opened up and I found the solution. Everything that was wrong with me, it fixed. I wanted to be alive. I wanted to be me. I wanted to be with you. It did for me what I had been longing for the answer. And so things got really bad really quickly. I dropped out of high school when I was 15, and I was just a train wreck really quickly. And at 16 years old, I got pregnant. I had my first daughter. She's 28 years old today. Beautiful, incredible, fabulous woman. And when I was 16, I stopped for a full year when I was pregnant. In our big book, it talks about the potential alcoholic or the hard drinker. If something becomes imperative or more important, they can put it down or moderate, right? And so for a full year, having this baby was my everything. I went back to school. I got my driver's license. I got into Drexel University, like all this stuff. And when that baby was 3 months old, I was at a gas station and somebody said, hey, you want a drink? And I said yes. And all of a sudden, how much I loved that little girl wasn't enough. And I would look at her, and she was a newborn, man. And I would just hate myself. Why can't I stop? Why can't I put it down? Like, by the time I was 17 years old, I was already a full-blown alcoholic already. The disease of alcoholism already had me locked and loaded. And when I was 19 years old, my daughter was 2, God graced me, and I entered recovery for the first time. And I will tell you something, that God brought me to another fellowship. If He would have brought me here, He would have opened up the big book and tried to qualify me. I would not have qualified. I wouldn't have known what you were talking about, and I would have thought the 12 steps were BS. But He didn't. God brought me exactly where I needed to be, into the right place I needed to be at that time. And I was in recovery in that fellowship for 9.5 years. And everything that, at 29 years old, I had an MBA degree, I had a house, I coached my daughter's 3rd grade softball team, like a life beyond my whole 20s were just in recovery raising this little girl. And I was in Costa Rica at 9.5 years in recovery, and a round of pina coladas came along. And I said to the person I was with, I like smoothies. This will be fun. And within 6 weeks, I was a daily blackout vodka drinker. My daughter was 11 years old at the time, and she'll tell you that there's months where I was phased. I was a daily blackout vodka drinker right from the start. She'll recall things. Our favorite shows, Hannah Montana. I have no recollection of watching any of those with her or going about that time of our life. That was my, and so within an 18-month period, I was in shackles and handcuffs facing a 5 to 10 year state prison sentence. And I spent 6 months in Bucks County Prison, and that is where Alcoholics Anonymous found me. And there was a woman who was armed with facts about herself and her disease and her recovery. And she came in and she led a big book meeting. Her name was Christine Z. And she opened up the big book with me week after week. We had individual sessions. She took me through the steps. And we got to write my 9-step amends list. And she said, nobody's going to want a letter from an inmate telling them how sorry they are. So we're going to set this aside. We're going to continue, keep it moving. You're going to get into 10, 11, and 12. And the week you get out, we're going to get about in those amends. And that's what we did. I was sober with you guys for 4 years. I was sober in the Lower Bucks County area. We started the Miracle Group. It was a Thursday night meeting. I was a part of a really great AA Big Book group community down there in Lower Bucks County. And in 2015, I had 4 years sober, and I picked up a drink again. And my daughter was 19 years old. No, my daughter was 17 years old at the time. And And that was almost 2.5 years of a relapse. And then I'm going to share about the day that, the last day, the end of the road. And I'm going to tell you, if you would have said to me this was the last day you're ever going to drink again, I wouldn't have believed you. I didn't see it coming, none of that, And it was December 27th. It was a Wednesday. It was 8 degrees that day. And I had been roaming, couch surfing, homeless for over 6 months. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a cell phone. I hadn't worked in 18 months. None of that. My daughter went through a relapse with me when she was 11, and she was like, "Come on, mommy, come on, mommy," and she was like still my girl, man. And I got out of jail when she was 13, and she was like, "Mommy," and she was just like right there with me. And she was 17, and she was in 11th grade at Comwell Egan, and she said, "I'm not doing it. I'm done." And she just cut me off. Within a month of me in a relapse drinking, she had nothing to do with me for 2 years, and just nothing. She just wasn't going to do it with me again, and it was December 27th, and it was 8 degrees out that night, and I hadn't seen my daughter in 2 years. She wanted nothing to do with me, and somebody was going to pick me up at the Golden Eagle Diner in Bristol, and they didn't show up, and it was after midnight, and I had nowhere to go. And for the first time, for the very, very, very first time, I had no more good effing ideas. I just had no more ideas. I always had another option to get me to the next one, Hold out for this, hold out for that. Let's call this person, get me to the next one. And I just had no more good ideas, just none. And I remember, I don't know what you do at the end of your road, but I want my mom. And so my mom lived in Croydon, and she still does. And so I walked, after midnight, from the Golden Eagle Diner in Bristol down to the gas station in Croydon, because I knew I wasn't actually allowed to go to my mom's house. My daughter lived there. And so I walked to the gas station in Croydon, and I said, "Can I use your phone, please?" And they said, "Homeless people can't use our phone." And I sat out on the front curb, and they said, "Homeless people can't stay here." I said, "Let me use your phone." "Homeless people can't use your phone." Finally, I went back in, and I said, "Can I use your phone?" They said, "Here's my phone." And so they gave me the phone, and I called my mom, and she said, "Sarah, I'm in North Carolina visiting your sister, and I can't help you." And I think our parents know when we're done. I think they sense something in us, or they hear a surrender in us on some level. And shortly after that, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. My uncle pulls into the gas station with his truck, and he takes me to his house, and he takes my shoes, and he takes my coat, and he takes my purse, and he sits me on the couch with a blanket, and he lights the fireplace, and he puts a baby gate in front of the living room in the hallway, and he sits on the other side of the baby gate like this. And my aunt came up in the morning, and she came downstairs, and guys, for that 2.5 years, I was in 7 rehabs, and I left AMA every time, because an alcoholic like me, I have no defense against the first drink, and so I could be fully committed. I want to get sober, and then 2, 3 days, 5 days, the obsession hits, and I'm gone. Like, the obsession hits, and I'm gone, and I was just leaving AMA, and I had been prayed over in church and charismatic healings, and I'd gone to therapists and all these rehabs, therapy, and nothing was able to break me, just nothing. And here I was, 2.5 years in a relapse. And I'm not somebody that was trying to come to Alcoholics Anonymous. I honestly did not believe that God was big enough to grace somebody with 3 times long-term recovery. I had 9.5 years, I had 4 years, and I just didn't think God was big enough to get me sober again. And so I wasn't somebody coming into AA getting 30. I wasn't me. I just wasn't here. And my aunt came down that morning, and And my daughter had a baby. Right after high school, my daughter got pregnant, and I was in a rehab. I was in Pyramid in Langhorne. And my daughter came into a family session, and she said, "Mom, I'm pregnant. I really want you to be part of." And that lasted 60 days. And I went back out, and I went drinking. And And my granddaughter was 14 months old when I got sober, and I had never met her. And that night and that morning, sitting on the couch, my aunt came down and she said, Sarah, I want to show you Lydia. I want you to meet Lydia. And she started showing me pictures of Lydia and videos of her first steps. And it broke me, guys. It broke me. It broke me in a way that I hadn't been broken before. It broke me in a way that I had been begging God to break me, and it just broke me. I saw the life that was going on without me. I saw the life and the beauty and the love. And she says, here's Layla's boyfriend, and here's your granddaughter. Her baptism. It broke me. And I just sobbed, and in my aunt's arms, I just sobbed, and I sobbed, and I sobbed, and she rubbed my back, and I was part of like Bucks County bars scene and the dry goods there, and I hadn't slept in 5 days or so, and my aunt rubbed my back, and I'm sobbing, and I slept, I don't know if 2 hours, 5, 7, I have no idea, but I slept so peacefully. And I have to tell you something, God, that I woke up and all I wanted to do was be back in the rooms with you guys. I didn't do that. 2 hours before, I would have never told you, I'm going back to AA and giving it another try. Nothing. I didn't see it coming, wasn't even praying for it anymore. And I woke up, and all I wanted to do was to be back in the rooms with you guys. All I wanted to do. Called my old sponsor. That was a Thursday morning. She picked me up Friday night. I went back to a meeting. And so the story began. And I know that if you take an alcohol away from an alcoholic like me, you need to put something in me quickly, or else I'm going to be drinking again. I'm full of fear. I'm full of insecurity, guilt, shame, neurotic behaviors, all sorts of stuff. And so we got busy really quickly. And I just want to tell you that it doesn't take long to get us right with ourselves, with others, and with God. It doesn't take long. And I was 4 days sober, and I was 4 days sober, and my mom somehow let me come back to her house. I think our parents intuitively know. They intuitively know. And she said, I can stay here until you can get a place to stay. Because the rehabs, they said no. I had been in 7 and left all of them AMA, and they wouldn't put me in another. And so my mom, we were trying to get into I went into a mental hospital for 10 days because I was hearing voices. And then I went into a recovery house, Newfound Freedom in Levittown for 7 months. But in that interim time, that 4 or 5 days, my mom let me stay with her. And my daughter lived there with my granddaughter. And it was just like unheard of. And I was going to a 12 Keys. I had 4 days sober. And I was going to a 12 Keys New Year's Eve party. And my daughter came down holding my 14-month-old granddaughter and said, do you want to meet Lydia? And I met my granddaughter. It doesn't take long, guys. And later on, my mom said to me, Layla came to me and she said, my mom's back in AA. She's going to be okay. I had been to 7 rehabs, and not one time would my daughter budge an inch on opening up back to me. She saw me go to 3 AA meetings, and I met my granddaughter. Like, that's the power of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's her seeing a mother in recovery since she was 2 years old and knowing what you guys do for a woman like me. And that's a testimony. Go AA and go God. And I went into that recovery house, and here's the power of like amends in action. You know, it doesn't take long, guys. Get on that pen with that 4-step. Tell me everybody you hate right now. Every piece of shame that you feel, everything that you close your head at night that bothers you. Tell me, put it down on paper. Free yourself. Doesn't take long to get right inside, right? Doesn't take long. And my daughter said I could see my granddaughter once a week for an hour. And I didn't have a car. I didn't have a phone. I was in a recovery house. And I got there once a week, every week for an hour. I was on blackout. I had to bring this girl. This girl, Emily, came with me one time. I'm sitting on the floor with my granddaughter. I have 30 days sober. And this toddler little girl comes toddling up to me. And she wraps her arms around my neck. And it was right then, I'm in AA. you have me. You have me, AA. Signed, sealed, delivered. I am in AA. Right then and there. That was me. That was my surrender, my commitment to this way of life. I knew it. And it's those little things, like those little, just the immense in action of day in and week in and week out, visiting that little girl. And she's 9 today. I took her to the Tim McGraw concert last month. She sleeps at my house. You know, she's, when she was 2 years old, she had a car seat in my car for, but when I was 4 months sober, I was still in that recovery house. And, up to that point, my daughter had been calling me she. Look, Lydia, give that to her. I was just like something that didn't really have And my daughter said to me, at 4 months sober, guys, 4 months sober, she said, what would you like Lydia to call you? And I went into the bathroom and I took a deep breath and I was like, oh my God. And I said, I came back out. I came back out and I said, I think my mom is good. And I heard, like, God graced me with the rightful place in that little girl's life. At 4 months sober, I earned a rightful place in that little girl's life as her grandmother. You can't take that away from me. And talk about like the amends in action. My daughter is happily married. She married her best friend. She's like a beautiful young woman, hardworking. My granddaughter's 9, and she just had her second baby in May. Talk about amends in action, right? We get do-overs in here. We get do-overs, and we get to show up in a way we weren't able to show up before. Because my second grandchild, he was just born in May, and I got every ultrasound picture. I gave her baby shower, and I got the text. We're going to the hospital. And when that baby was 4 months old, I was at University of Penn holding him. 4 hours. When that baby was, he's only 12 weeks right now. When that baby was 4 hours old, I stood in that hospital bed and I held my newest grandson at 4 hours old. Like, I got to be her mom in a way I wasn't able to be when my granddaughter was born 9 years ago. And we get do-overs in here. We get to show up differently for people in ways we never could before. 2020 came along, and financial amends, I'll talk a little bit about. And of course, I went around to every one of my family members. I sat down with them. Here's how I wronged you. Is there anything else that I forgot that you want to say to me? I did all those. And then there's the financial amends. And I had tens of thousands of dollars in financial amends, and COVID came, and 2020, and the government's giving me all this money, and I'm like, this is not my money. This is not my money. And I went around my life, and in 2020, I made over $12,000 of financial amends, and I went and I called old employers, and I sat down with them, and I told them this is what I took, and here's the money. And I called family members, and I sat down with them, and I said, here's what I took, here's the money. And I called friends, and I called creditors, and I just said, here's the money, it's not mine. Here's the money. And some people, I had a professor at Chestnut Hill, and she gave me money for rent one time before I lost my house, and I didn't use it for rent. I was out drinking, and I called her and I said, here's what happened. I used this money inappropriately. I want to give it back to you. And she said, I don't want your money back. And I said, and she said, here's the favorite charity to the kids in Africa. Can you donate it to them? And my aunt gave me her bike one time when I didn't have a car, and I left it out front of a bar, and it was just gone. And I Googled, it was $235. And she said, Sarah, I don't want your money. I don't want your money. And so I went online and I bought $235 of recovery books, and I dropped them off at the prison. Like, we make financial amends, we just make them, and we make them happen. And I think, do I have 5 minutes to share?
We got plenty.
Yeah, take what you want.
Because I wanted to share some graveside amends that were really, really, really powerful. I think there's one I'll definitely share, and then we'll see if we have time for another one. And this is just more recently. So this was all like the stuff like in the very beginning when your butt's on fire, and I got to be okay with myself because I'm going to drink if I don't get some kind of like okayness inside. That early beginning? And that was just the quick cleanup. And then within the last last year, I went through the 12 steps again, line by line with a sponsor, and went through the process again. And I wrote this inventory, and I had this inventory, and I sat with a priest, because I go to, I have a faith. And I sat with a priest, and this was really a remarkable thing. And he said to me, you want to sit in a confessional, or do you want to go face to face? I'm like, face to face. And sometimes I was like this, reading it to him. I told him what I was doing. I'm a member of a 12-step fellowship. I'd like to share my inventory with you. He said, I know all about it. Come on over. And so at the end of it, he said, this is amazing. At the end of it, he said, Sara, in the AA Big Book, it says that after you do this, you spend an hour with God, thanking Him from the bottom of your heart that you know Him better. And he said, for your penance, within the next day or two, I want you to spend that hour with God, thanking Him from the bottom of your heart. Oh, and by the way, the church is open right now, and you're free to spend it as long as you want to. And I sat right there afterwards, and I had that hour with God. And when you have a channel that's open like that, God will come in, and He will speak, and He will say things, and I have 2 little girls. My youngest is going to be 6 next week. My oldest is going to be 28 next week, and then I have a 7-year-old, a 7.5-year-old. My 2 little ones have been co-parenting successfully with their father for 4 years, and they were with their dad every other weekend and every Thursday, and it's a Saturday morning, and they're with their dad, and so I have this house, and I'm sitting there on prayer and meditation, and I hear, we're going to the cemeteries today. Bring a notebook and a pen and get a blanket. And so I just, and I get there, and I want to tell this story. I've never shared this story before. And I was 12 years old, and I had this boyfriend. I got this boyfriend. I was in 7th grade, and he was in 7th grade too, when he was 12 years old. His name was Jesse Staples, and he was my very first boyfriend. And I was really young and naive and sheltered, and he was really not. And he had much older brothers and stuff like that. And so there were a lot of things in that relationship that he started touching early. I lost my virginity to a 13-year-old boy when I was 13. I didn't know he was going to do it when he did it. I didn't know what he was going to do, these things. I just didn't know. Maybe at 12 years old, you knew all about sex and floor plan. I didn't. And so it was really... I think if anything contributed to a sense of unworthiness and a sense of my alcoholism, it was this, right? He really broke me. And I lost my voice. I just didn't know I could say no. I didn't know I could say stop. I didn't know I could say this is horrible. I didn't know. I was 12. And when that boyfriend broke up with me at 15 years old, I started drinking. That was the beginning of my drinking. And it just really broke me. And it really charted a course, a thread throughout my whole life of men that I would be with who were highly interested in sex, but not much interested in getting to know me. And it's been a common thread through my life. And Jesse Staples overdosed and died in December of 2014. And the thing about it, though, was that in the 6-month period, his father died when we were 15, and I was at his funeral with him. And in a 6-month period, his mother died first of alcoholism. And then his best friend, our friend Sam Ocharski from high school, he died of an overdose. And then a month later, his youngest brother died of an overdose. And then in April of 2014, Jesse died of an overdose. And I went to Jesse's grave, and I had done things in therapy and another 4 steps with him, and I sat there, and I'm sitting there at his grave, and I pull out the blanket, and I'm like, here's my notebook. I'm like, all right, now what? And I'm right-handed. And I picked up the pen with my left hand, and I wrote a left-handed letter to Jesse Staples telling him that I know it wasn't his fault, and I don't blame him anymore. And that he was a 12-year-old boy like I was a 12-year-old girl, and he could not have taken any level of comprehension to know what he was doing to me or that it had any impact on me. And I just completely released him from any blame, any fault that I could have ever found with him. And I just let him know in a left-handed letter that I do not blame him, and that I know he was a young boy, And the thing about it, his sister is 3.5 years ago, she went to Florida to get sober, and she's been sober ever since. And her and one brother are the only ones they have left. And she had a baby, and I keep in touch with her casually, maybe once or twice a year. And she calls me. As I'm sitting at Jesse's grave, Bridget Staples calls me from Florida. And I say, because it's Jesse's birthday. I was there on Jesse's birthday, and she just wanted to touch base with me. She felt she just felt it to call me. And I'm like, Bridget, I'm sitting here at Jesse's grave right now. And I tell her what I'm doing. I'm writing him a letter. I'm letting him know that it wasn't his fault. And she's sober down there in AA in Florida. And she said, Sarah, I got to tell you what it was like for Jesse. And I never knew. She told me all these stories about his mother beating him with bats. And when his father was on his deathbed, he punched his father right in the face and knocked him out. And his mother threw him against the wall and started burning him. And just she started telling me about the beatings he received and the violence in the home. And in that moment, I knew intuitively how good I had gotten it with Jesse. He never hit me. I'd never been hurt. He was very gentle with me. And in that moment, I realized how bad it could have been with me and Jesse. And that all that it was probably grace saving me from what it could have been. Because I couldn't imagine. I had a threat of their own men. Couldn't imagine have a threat of abusive men too at the same time, because I've never been hit in my whole life. And I sat there, and it like all made sense again. If that transformative power that amends happened, and I released Jesse, I learned more about how he came from. I saw God's hand in it the whole time. And then Bridget tells me that her daughter's father is in prison for a PFA for beating her up. She's having trouble paying the bills. And right there and there, I sent her $250 on Venmo. It was like just such a completion of an amends, a graveside amends. I have 2 more that are so incredible like that, and I probably don't have time to share them. So I'll just say that all sorts of amends, all sorts of beautiful ways, like reconciliation with you and me, frees you, whether you're alive or passed away. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Here we go. Thanks for letting me share.
Wonderful. Oh my God. So powerful. Okay, guys, we've come to the part of the meeting where